we have a session number 3 on using texting to engage with learners. It's a very exciting session. And if you haven't had a chance to look at the slides, or if you want to save the slides for the future, we will be able to share the link with you, or you can scan even our slide, and that slide will show up, show you the link to the presentation as well. We will be sharing that link as well after the session. Now, when it comes to our session today, I have a few Zoom tips. It's usually something that we forget, that you can enlarge your videos. We can also ask for pinning options, and the pinning option is allowing you to keep a specific video on your screen. Our interpreters are both spotlighted today, so they should be sort of the first videos that you will see, and me as one of the hosts. But also when we have our guests speaking, we will spotlight them, so their videos will be bigger as well. And then waving and saying hello to everyone who is saying hi in the chat. This is fantastic. Thank you for doing that. Now, when it comes to the session overview, it's a slightly different setup. And the setup is really kind of introductions and housekeeping. We have an hour and a half for the whole thing. So around 60 minutes for our guest presenters and conversations, and then Q&A and wrap up. But we usually open up questions during the presentations as well. So you will have a chance to ask questions and respond during the actual session as well. All right. Any questions at this point before we continue? Feel free to raise your hand in using the Zoom chat. Dai is waving for us. Dai, do you have any questions or just a wave? Just a wave. Okay, perfect. Okay, let's start with the land acknowledgement and take some time to pause for a second. And I'm just going to see, I can see we still have some audio coming in. So I'm trying to see who else is muted, unmuted, and then it's causing a bit of a audio feedback here. So let's see, hopefully we caught everyone. Land acknowledgement. We would like to begin by acknowledging the indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we meet today on a virtual platform, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge the importance of the lands which we each call home. We do this to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility in improving relationships between nations and to improve our own understanding of local indigenous peoples and their cultures. From coast to coast to coast, we acknowledge the ancestral and unceded territory of all the Inuit, Métis, and First Nations people that call this land home. Okay, a bit of context when it comes to why we picked this topic. And we talk about texting, but it's really short message service that we are discussing, which is a service that many of us have included on built-in into our mobile devices. And that specific service has 160 characters. We are going to have Paul explain a bit more details on how everything works, but it's really allowing us to communicate without having internet connection. And this became very obvious and used a lot during the COVID times when we were trying to reach to our learners, to our clients and connectors to make sure that we are communicating in a very quick and efficient way. Now, as we moved from COVID and there's many other tools that we could use, we are still realizing that many platforms that we have access to can be confusing and difficult to understand. And there's so many of them to choose from. Some of them are easy or not easy to use and understand. So we are looking at how we can implement those tools. What's the cost involved in that? And then sometimes one of the biggest questions we get is, I don't want to use my personal mobile phone or my number when I'm connecting with my learners. Some organizations are lucky enough to be able to provide organizational numbers to staff, but not everyone is in that boat. Some of us are still using our personal mobile devices, still connect using those phones. So as part of the discussion today, we're looking at a tool or discussing that option where you can get your phone number separately that could be used by the organization to send text messages to their clients. And another question that we discuss and we hear is, my learners may not have a phone or may not know how texting works. So we want to address some of those as well. Now, One of the things I just want to note on the side, because I mentioned SMS, something that we may be used to and familiar with from our older phones, flip phones, if we had those, you may have seen SMS on it. But newer phones may also say MMS, which is multimedia messaging service, or RCS, which is rich communication service. What that basically means that those features include an option to send even videos and pictures through the texting tool. They're a bit more advanced and they still require other tools to do that. So we are not looking at those at this point. We are still looking at the basic SMS texting tool. And Paul, again, will have a chance to give us a bit more feedback and information about that. But the idea is looking at tools that may allow us to connect with learners who may not have internet, who may be in remote locations, or even looking at that as a tool because it's fast, quick, and efficient to use. Now, I'm going to ask you to use a Slido tool, and then that will allow us to ask you questions, and then you can respond. So I have a question for you. Have you tried texting with your learners? So what you need to do is two options. One, pull out your phone. If you have a phone in front of you somewhere, scan the QR code. It's going to take you directly to the question and you can answer on your phone. Or you can put slido.com link into your browser, put the code that we have displayed on the screen. And again, that will take you to the question and you will be able to answer the question we have posted. And as we are doing that, I'm going to say hello and thank you to Tracy, who posted the link in the chat. Thank you, Tracy. Tracy is my colleague from AlphaPlus. All right, so let's take a few minutes. You will also notice as I'm displaying the screen with the answers are shifting and changing. They're feeding live into our system. So I can see 17 of you have participated and all of you are saying you are using texting with the learners all the time, which is fantastic. I know not everybody participated yet, but if you haven't, this is the time to learn. And if you do, it's your chance to share with others what you're using. And I will be asking that question to please share with us. And also, if you are using specific tools, how are they working for you? Because that's the time for us to share and learn from each other as well. So 25 participants so far, and I can see 44% are using it, but we do have some of you who are using it sometimes, once or twice, or only during COVID. So this is really good feedback from us to know how things have progressed over the last few years and where we are with using the tools. So I want to thank you for participating. If you still have time, please answer those questions. It's helping us to understand where you are as we are doing the session today. Okay, so I'll just give you one more minute to do that. Perfect. It's really good to know how the field is working with the different tools. Fantastic. Okay, now that we have sort of gotten some idea that some of you are already using the tool, so please don't forget, share the tools with us. But here you have Jane and Paul here with us today, who will talk about how they're using specific tool for texting. And we know there are other tools out there. I have to admit, 4 or 5 years ago, before COVID, we explored texting tools, came across some of them, tried them with the field. It was kind of difficult to understand how some of those tools worked. There's costing involved. Some programs started using them, some didn't. COVID came, more tools being used. And before this session today, I went online and started looking what other texting tools are available. And I have to admit, I was overwhelmed. All the new tools that came up was something I had never heard about before. So the technology is progressing and changing so quickly, it can be overwhelming. That's why we are focusing on one. Hopefully it will inspire you to take a look at that one. But if not, also get a bit of confidence and boost in how you could be using texting overall in your practice. Okay? Now, so we have Jane, we have Paul, we also have Tracy from AlphaPlus, and our amazing interpreters today are Alicia and Anna. So thank you all for taking the time to be here with us today. Now, if you have come to our showcases before, you know that I always want to sort of give everybody an idea of where we are when it comes to looking at a map of Ontario, because we work within the Ontario environment, and the distances we cover and are able to meet here on Zoom instantly. So AlphaPlus is in Toronto, but if you look on the map, you will see that Paul is 185 kilometers away from us in Stirling, and Jane is in Eggenville, over 350 kilometers from us. So again, thank you for taking the time to join us from different locations in Ontario. And we'll have a bit of time to discuss where you're from, what programs you're representing in a few minutes. But for now, I wanted to share with everyone what kind of questions we are asking you as our guests. So some of the guiding questions will be to tell us about yourself and the organization, to ask you what tools you're using and how and why did you choose those specific ones. Also, some examples that you can share with us that we may be able to use in our programs. What differences are those tools making? And any tips and resources that could be useful for the team. And please keep in mind that Jane represents a literacy program. Paul represents an organization that offers the texting tools. And again, the idea is to better understand how they work, because they can be tricky and sometimes confusing in how everything is working together. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Jane, who is our first guest presenter, and she's going to talk about the tools she's using. Jane, welcome. Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you. I'm glad to be here today. My name is Jane Wouda. I've been working at the Training and Learning Center of Renfrew County as a literacy and basic skills instructor for about 10 years. I had a classroom in Pikwakanagan, Ontario for about 3 years, and I also worked as the traveling instructor, taking my classroom on the road to many small towns and villages in Eastern Ontario. I should have said Renfrew County. Since the pandemic, I've been the primary online instructor, teaching classes over Zoom and other video platforms. Now, I'm assuming everyone can hear me. I should have asked that, but you probably would let me know if you couldn't. Next slide. So what is Connect?
Sorry, this is the interpreter. I'm actually having a bit of a difficult time hearing you.
Oh,
You know what? I can crank you up and that works. All good.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's great. I'll talk a little louder. I've never been accused of being quiet, so I'll do my best to put a bit more air into my voice. So what is Connect SMS? I'm sure Paul will be able to explain exactly what it is, but in a nutshell, Connect SMS is a texting app that lets you connect with learners via text messages without using a phone. I use my laptop to connect to my learners. Next.
All right.
Why use a texting app? Well, the pandemic created a lot of unique problems that demanded creative solutions, as I'm sure you all know. We found it very difficult to connect with learners when we were working from home, which went on for quite some time. Next slide. After the classroom reopened, we continued to teach both online and in person. So this meant that instructors needed a practical solution to the communication barrier they were experiencing when working remotely. And not just, I know I said I was open, but we also just needed a way to connect with our learners on a day-to-day basis, not just remotely. Next slide. I asked my program manager if instructors could get cell phones because it was too much trouble to change the settings on our personal cell phones to say unknown caller in order to protect our privacy every time we needed to talk to a learner. It is possible to do that. I don't even remember how, but it was a big hassle to go in and make the change and then remember to switch it back. Also, most learners wouldn't answer the phone when they couldn't identify the caller. And I made a little note to myself that said, I really love my learners, but that doesn't mean I want them to be able to call me on my personal cell phone. And I know that LBS instructors have a heart for their learners, their clients, but you need to have that division, right? That disconnect from work sometimes. And so that was part of it, trying to disconnect from work as well. The texting app provides enhanced connectivity while protecting the instructor's privacy. The sharing options are great for rural communities where internet connections can be unreliable or even unavailable. Where I live in Renfrew County, there are areas where internet is not really available. Not that long ago, I think there are still some of my neighbors using dial-up. As well, there are times when you just need to send a text because not everyone has a phone plan. It's my understanding that texting is an economical method of communicating. And for this last point, we first heard about the Connect app from Employment Services, some friends in Employment Services. And so I went over to my buddy and said, can you tell me why you think this app is good? I'm trying to create this presentation and I'm looking for some more ideas. And so that last point was one of his. And I have to tell you the truth, I don't really know a lot about phone plans and the cost. So maybe someone can help me out with that at some point. But that was what he had said, that it's economical. Next slide, please. Some learners participate in Zoom classes on their phones. They find opening links or downloading documents in Zoom challenging. The texting app makes this simple. In some of my classes in the past, students shared a laptop. It was challenging and time-consuming for them to finish online forms or activities. Being able to share links via a text message would make this faster and simpler. At least I believe it would. I'm going to have an opportunity to test this out in an upcoming Zoom class I'll be doing in 2 weeks. But they were sisters taking the class. You'd send the link and then one person would get on and complete the Google form, and then the other person would get on and complete the Google form. And so they were always lagging a bit behind. And I just think, if one could do it on the computer and one on their phone, it would fix that problem. And I've had people share devices in Zoom classes in the past. It's actually pretty common. Next slide, please. Why use a texting app? You in particular seem to prefer texting over phone calls or emails. In my experience, texting is preferable to long written emails. You don't have to turn on your laptop and log into your email to get your messages. With the Connect app, your message is right there on your phone. Some of my clients struggle with attendance issues. We want to do whatever we can to help them succeed. And that might be a bit of an assumption that youth in particular, but that has been my experience. And the wordiness of emails, I'm not sure they want to read all that. They really seem to prefer, no capitals or periods, just a couple of words in the text. It's what they're looking for. I find that painful. I like to punctuate my text for them. So connecting with learners. Since we haven't had the app for that long, we haven't had a chance to use it to its fullest capacity. We primarily use it to remind learners about times and dates for appointments. This has been very helpful, and I really like the turnaround time for responses. It is so much faster than an email. So there's an example of a text that I sent. Like I said, we've had it since, I think, the beginning of the summer, but, it takes some time to really incorporate new things into your daily practice. Or maybe I'm just slow. Next slide, please.
And Jane, just to pause for a second, I put in our chat a question for the participants to put one if they have received a text message from their doctor to confirm a doctor's appointment. And then we receive those as well. So very likely our learners may be receiving those as well. So this idea of them using or you using texting with them is really extending their knowledge as well, right?
Yes. Excellent. Thank you. Another great feature of the Connect app is that you can turn on email notifications so you don't miss incoming messages. I didn't do this at first and I missed a few because, you have to log into the app and then look to see if there are notifications. And anyways, I don't work 5 days a week. I only work a few days a week. And sure enough, I hadn't been getting all my messages and I thought, oh, that's not very good. So I went in and realized it was a really simple fix. Next slide, please. So this is a screenshot of once I fixed that problem, this is what I got from the app letting me know that there was a message. And it just took a few seconds to set this up, and now I don't inadvertently overlook messages anymore. And I did receive training on the app, but again, you don't always, figure everything out. I like to use, I'm like a learner, right? We all learn with hands-on activities like our learners. So it takes some time to get better at things. We don't always get a response to our reminder texts. It's hard to know why. One change we plan on implementing is rather than just sending a reminder, we'll follow up with the text asking for a response. So here's a sample that I borrowed from my local card dealer. This is one I get from them. It says, please reply yes to confirm, no to cancel, or call for us to contact you. So I'm going to try to use something like that, which would require the learner not just to sort of be passive and read, but to answer. And I do find that if someone says yes, then they have a bit of commitment thing, and they're more likely to come. Mm-hmm. So you can also get statistics from the app. And as you can see, more texts tend to go out than come in. This is not surprising, but I do feel like it's going to improve over time when everyone gets used to it and we use the texting app more consistently. Because right now, it's not as consistent as it could be. And sometimes, partway through the week, I'm like, oh yeah, I could have sent a text. So hopefully that will get better.
And this is an interesting feature we don't think about when using our own text messaging tools. We don't get the stats, right? Here you're actually seeing stats as well.
Yeah, it is very. When you asked me, Monica, if I had statistics, I thought, statistics? Where am I going to get those? And then I went into the app and I'm like, oh, they're right here.
Amazing.
I've had a chance to share a Google form using the app. It was an exit form for a learner who needed to step back from their learning. It was unexpected, so we didn't have a chance to get it done ahead of time. Being able to send the link over the phone or the texting app meant I got the exit form completed in a few minutes with very little trouble, and it worked great. So we do have all of our forms, exits, the rest, assessments as Google Docs, which we did during the pandemic. And so I just added the link to the chat and sent a little, you can see it right there. And it looked weird in the text message. So I was a little concerned about how it would all go, but it worked really well. And I got the completed form done in 3 minutes. Next, please.
There we go.
I made other mistakes along the way. I thought that if I identified myself one time, the first time I sent a text, the client would remember who I was. That was not the case. I would recommend having your learners add you as a contact. Again, I should have known better, but sometimes you have to learn the hard way. And so this is one of the responses I got. Hi, I'm not sure who I'm talking to. Please reply. And I did identify myself, but it's still, we teach our learners to be skeptical and wary of unknown people in text messages. So it's understandable that we were not going to just accept me immediately. That's the confirmation. Next slide, please. I taught a group of 55+ learner digital skills over the summer. And I wasn't sure if they liked texting. But again, that was just an assumption, which you're not supposed to do. Most of them were already using texts in some capacity. In many cases, I found out they learned how because it was their children's or grandchildren's preferred method of communication. So, don't assume a learner of whatever age isn't going to be using texting. A lot of them already are. I just incorporated adding contacts into one of our digital lessons as a hands-on activity. And that's really one of the key pieces of LWS anyways, is that we learn by doing, we learn with activities. And with the new, I don't know if you used any of the new milestones, the digital milestones that the OLACF have created, but a lot of them are about using cell phones. So I don't know if adding contacts is one of them, but it fits really nicely into that whole some of those new milestones. So I would recommend doing that. So what's changed for the Training and Learning Center as a result of using Connected Science? Well, again, we haven't been using it for very long. But so far, what has improved for the TLC is our ability to connect quickly, privately, and with minimum effort with our learners. We are glad to have another tool in our toolkit. It's not going to necessarily replace other methods. It's just one more way to talk to people, to connect with people, to improve communication. And, as LBS instructors, we know that we always talk about different methods of learning and different learning styles. And so texting is just one more way that possibly will, be the missing link for a learner. You just don't know what works. Next, please. So overall, we like that our texts are time-stamped. It's always nice to have a record, so we like that. We like that you can send clickable links, which is obviously that's pretty great, especially if you send people forms. We like that you can send documents easily and safely, and I have done this, and it does work, as Paul, I'm sure, will tell you more about, and it's pretty great. We like that it's a faster and easier way to communicate. Some people prefer that. And it's also a secure way to communicate. So you can see an example of one of the messages. It's got my name, it's got the date, and it says delivered, and it's nice. Next slide, please. We hope to expand our use of the app in the future. We want to set it up to send automatic reminders. Now, I don't know why we haven't already got this, up and running and going, but during the summer, like some other literacy and basic skills, we have, a smaller staff, and some parts of it sort of shut down. So it is taking us some time to get it all going. But I do think that it would improve our attendance rates and save our office admin some time. Because right now she has to phone people. And so this might be a faster way. Next, please. And that's it. So thank you so much for allowing me to share this information with you. And honestly, it was a bit of a challenge for me to try to do new things, but we're always encouraging our learners to try new things. And so I think it's important for us as instructors to stretch ourselves a little and try new things too. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jane. And I'm going to open the floor for questions, but also for feedback or notes from other instructors and participants who may be using the texting tool. Are you using it in a similar way, maybe different way? Is there something you would want to suggest to this group as well? And then Jim is asking, did you say that you don't need a phone plan to use this app?
The Training and Learning Center isn't using a phone plan. Obviously, we purchased the app from Paul. I think we purchased it from Paul. Yep. As for the learners, they're going to have some kind of plan to receive text messages, but not necessarily phone calls. And that's the part I was a little confused by. But I'm pretty sure some people just have a texting plan and not a phone call plan.
Yes.
Maybe
yeah.
Yes.
And I'm sure. Absolutely. And Paul will cover a lot of that. I know there's a question about pricing from the tool, so we will have that covered as well in the discussion. But thank you, Jane, for clarifying that as well, because it's what attracts me to the tools like that is that you as the program do not have to have mobile devices even. This can be set up on a regular computer. That's where you see the contacts. That's where you see the history and information that you need to collect. And the system sends it to mobile numbers. So you yourself as an organization do not have to have that mobile plan at all. You actually subscribe to the text organization that sends the text messages. So that's slightly the difference in how that works. But I know Paul will have a bit more time for that as well. So let me just review a few more messages and questions here. So Jessica is asking, does it use current agency phone number? And as far as I'm concerned, and Jane and Paul, please chime in if I'm wrong, no, it usually you get a new phone number that you'll be using because it's a separate service than your regular phone number in the system. But as Jane suggested, you can really teach and encourage your learners to add a name or to the contacts. So in the contacts on their phone, they could have the name of the organization, they could have the phone number for the organization and a mobile phone number. And that mobile phone number could be the texting tool number. So it will display as an organization texting and messaging them as well. So you can kind of set them up for that success so they know who is contacting them. Paul, am I correct in that?
Normally it's a new number. We can port your number to us and you can use that. It doesn't always work. It depends. Like if you're using a VoIP line, it won't work. It has to be a standard landline. It can't already provision for SMS, and it's got to work with our providers and so forth. So it doesn't always work. It's not as important as people think because, you know, they're not used to seeing text messages from your organization phone. So their assumption is when a text message is coming in, it's coming in from someone's personal device. So, you know, there's no real disconnect from the fact that it's not your organization's number.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point as well. And then there's another question. Is this something you would sign up for individually or as an instructor? So again, I think that question we can just hold on for a second because Paul, you will have a lot of information about that in your presentation. So is that okay if I just skip it for now because you will cover that?
I will cover it, or someone can ask the question while it's my turn to answer questions, and we can.
Perfect.
I probably won't remember everything because there's been a lot of stuff to kind of make. I made some notes and stuff, but we'll see.
Perfect. So Jim is asking, how do you know if somebody is giving you their home number or a cell phone number or mobile number? Usually the one thing you have to do is ask. For me, experience in Toronto is that, you know, we have area code 416. So, you know, that would be the other home or mobile number. But over the time, the mobile numbers can't use 416 anymore. So it's usually actually slightly different area code with the newer mobile numbers. So that kind of, I can figure out that maybe a mobile number, but usually it's just asking. Again, Paul, if you have another tip on that, how do you recognize the difference between home number and a mobile number?
Well, if you have to guess, 90% of the time it's a cell number because almost nobody has a landline anymore. Sure. The number of landlines that have been dropped in Canada, I mean, I can't remember the last time I looked at the statistics for this. It's probably 2017. But if you go and look at the white pages that come out every year, you'll notice they keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And white pages only list landlines, right? So, you know, people keep dropping them. So chances are, especially, you know, everybody's got a mobile device. I can't think of anybody that I know personally who does not have a mobile device, even my mom who's 80, right? It's probably going to be their primary contact number is going to be their cell number.
Good point as well. And I think, you know, we'll watch how many questions are coming in. It will come back as undeliverable, so I can see their questions being asked and answered by other participants, which is great. One thing that I just want to add before we jump in with Paul's presentation is that one of the number one things we discussed with programs when it comes to texting is the follow-ups, the 3, 6, and 12-month follow-up. And then, Jane, I'm not sure if you had the chance to try or practice some of that, but a lot of programs started trying to send the link to the follow-up form. And to some extent, they had success with that. So often when they called, somebody didn't pick up or didn't respond. But when they texted that quick message with the link, they actually had somebody fill out the form. Have you tried that on your end, Jane?
No, we haven't had a chance to try that. I know that we've discussed it. That's usually Connie, our office person, who usually does that. And I know that she hopes to do that. I mean, we really try whatever works. We just try everything. My boss does Facebook messages, like you name it, we try it. And so for some of these questions like cell phone, is it a cell phone or, you know, I would just say try it and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then you know. But yeah, I would suggest just keep trying it. And you know, you never really know what's going to work or not work, but just give it a go.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Jane. If there are more questions, feel free to answer them in the chat. If you see them coming up, we will try to monitor as well. And I'm going to give the floor to Paul. So Paul, I'm going to add you into the spotlight and remove Jane so that we have a bit more space here. And I'll launch. Well, actually, you can launch into your presentation because I think you prefer to share the slides on your own. Is that correct? Don't forget to unmute, Paul.
Sorry about that. If you want to stop sharing your screen, I will share mine.
Go for it.
Okay, perfect. All right, are we seeing my screen okay? And the slide?
Yep.
Yes? Okay, so before I begin the presentation, I would like to thank Monica for giving me the opportunity to present here. I would like to thank Jane for her presentation and for saying all those lovely things about our software. And of course, I want to thank all you guys, the rest of you who are on this Zoom meeting to be here with us. for giving up some of your time and for being here. It's really appreciated, and I really appreciate it. So thanks so very much. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Paul Crane. I'm the CEO of Local Text Marketers. We're an all-Canadian company, and we've been providing specialized SMS services. Again, that's text messaging in North America since 2013. I've got my contact data here in case any of you want to follow up with me directly. That would be perfectly fine. And today, as we know from Jane's presentation, we're talking about the Connect SMS application. And Connect SMS is a texting application, and you can log in with your desktop, you can log in with your laptop, your tablet, you can log in with your mobile device, and you send text messages and automated appointment reminders to your clients. And yes, even though you're sending this on your desktop or your laptop, you are still sending SMS messages. It's the same technology as if you were to pick up your phone and text a friend. Connect is a cloud-based software, so you access it wherever you have internet connections. There's no software to download, which means there's no impact on your local IT. So if you have an IT department, they're going to be very happy about this. It really doesn't make any difference to your local environment. It's just you access via a browser. So before we talk more about the software, I think it's important we talk about why you would consider texting your audience versus using some other communication channel, which is often email, but it can be other things. Jane mentioned that her boss uses Facebook messaging, whatever. There's all kinds of opportunities. So why would you do that? Well, today, 80% of people say texting is the best way to reach them. That's number one. Second, texting is unintrusive, fast, and efficient. So it doesn't interrupt the recipient. They don't have to stop what they're doing, like if it was a phone call. Very, very quick in a text message, like Jane was sending messages with just a few words in them. You can get the point across very quickly, very fast. It's a simple and unintimidating technology that everyone uses regardless of demographic. So the numbers, the percentage of people who use text, basically from 18 to 39, it's like 99.9%. You go from 39 to 65, it's like, in the low 90s, and you get into the 80s and it's in the 80% and so forth. I mean, octogenarians aren't texting because they would prefer to text, but as Jane said, they know that the only way that they can reach their children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren is if they text. So they do. Texting is cost-friendly. So if you work with people who are disadvantaged, they may not have voice minutes on their phone. They won't have a data plan. So you won't be able to email them. You won't be able to call them, but they will have text. And this is what your Jane's Employment Ontario contact was talking about. Essentially, you can still reach them on the channel that they prefer. Text messages are delivered over the carrier network, and they're not dependent on a reliable internet connection. So again, if you're in a rural area, this is a real advantage. It works on phones long considered obsolete. So you don't need to have the newest smartphone or even a smartphone that's a couple of years old. This is basically a really archaic technology, and it works extremely well. Very important. The most important point here. All text messages are open and read, the majority within 3 minutes. So why is that? Is there something really special about the texting technology that gives it an advantage over, messaging via social media apps or email? No, it's where the messages originate from. So text messaging is reserved for people in your immediate social circle, right? So people that you have a close personal relationship with. So when you think about yourself and you think about the people that you have on your cell phone that you text with regularly, I'm betting you haven't just given your cell phone away to just everyone. It's probably your spouse, your partner, your children, your really close friends, some close colleagues, and so forth. And so when a message comes in via the text app on your phone and it gives you that signal, you're always really eager to open that because it's coming from someone you care about, someone you're invested in. You think about email. Emails come from people you don't care about. That's why, it may take you 3 hours or 3 days to respond to your email or even check it. Because if it was important and it was somebody you cared about, they would text you. So this is how basically you reach right into someone's most intimate communication channel and reach them, right? We have so many stories where people will say, hey, we reached finally that person we've been trying to reach for 3 months. We sent them a text. They got back to us in 2 minutes. It's crazy. It really does work that well. So then, now that we know why we should be using text messaging, I think the next most obvious question is, why would you be using Connect SMS to text opposed to a handheld device, or let's say, multiple handheld devices in your organization? Well, there are a number of reasons. So the first one, of course, is what Jane was talking about, and that is privacy protection. You're not using a personal device. You're not using a device, where people can reach out to you outside of regular business hours. You do need that space. Cost savings. I'm going to talk about pricing a little bit, but Connect SMS was basically built for social services and employment, and it can't be pricier. We just wouldn't be accessible to that marketplace. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Ease of use. Again, another barrier to most softwares is that they're impossible to use. They're complicated. There's a long onboarding process. Nobody wants to learn them, and eventually you just don't use them. So I'm going to show you the software to prove to you that this is actually the case. But ease of use is a big one. Conversation record retention. So the software is built to make sure that you can retain basically every conversation, every message that goes in and out. So you have a complete paper trail of everything that happens. This is really important for you, obviously. It's also designed to allow the software administrators to easily have messaging oversight. So you can make sure that whatever communication is going on the app is in compliance with whatever communication policies you have, right? The software has a rich feature set. And I can't get into everything. Obviously, we don't really have the time, but it includes those out-of-office autoresponders, automated appointment reminders, message templates, all sorts of things. The other big one is to reduce no-shows and missed appointments for, basically any sort of meeting or phone call with those automated reminders. And that reminder service, basically all it does is it sends messages in advance or in the future. I mean, that can be used for 3, 6, and 12-month follow-ups. This is something you guys have talked about. We have a lot of EO clients, Employment Ontario clients, who use it for that reason. It can be set up to you to do that. And obviously the response from text messages is vastly superior to what you're going to get when you send your 3, 6, and 12-month follow-ups via email. So just to touch on pricing just for a minute, this is a monthly subscription service. So every 30 days, you're paying this. It starts at $39.99 a month, and that includes access for 5 staff who all get their own access. So basically what you're doing is you're giving 5 staff access to a phone for about $8 a month, essentially. You'll get 1 phone number and 600 messaging credits per month, which may not sound like a lot, but it is plenty, believe me, unless you've got a huge organization. There's no limits on the number of contacts that you have in the platform. So you could have 5 staff and you could have 500 contacts, doesn't matter. There's a 10% nonprofit discount. There's no setup or cancellation fees or any other fees for that matter. There's a 30-day unlimited free trial. So you test it out and you just use it and say, does this thing help us connect with our audience? Does it help us reach them? Is it valuable? So you get to test it. Month to month only, no contracts, cancel anytime. We basically do all that stuff to make sure that there's no buyer's remorse, right? You get to test it, you get to confirm, you get to evaluate it, and make your decision based on that. So there's a little bit of an overview. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to provide just a little bit of a demo of the software. And so the idea here is not really to perform an extensive walkthrough, but instead to kind of show you how easy it is to use, how unintimidating it is. Ideally, if you were interested in the software, we would do a one-on-one demo with you, and we could answer whatever questions you had and get into the software, obviously, more deeply. So I think I have to stop my screen share and start a new one. So I'm going to do that here.
Absolutely. Paul, if you're comfortable with the annotation tools in Zoom, maybe just easier when you're pointing to specific sections on your display, if you want to do that. It's just to help others follow, on the screen when you're navigating through the application. If you share, there will be annotation tools, and you will be able to pick one, Spotlight or something. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. So I want to stop this share. Sorry, just bear with me for a minute here. Where did my Zoom go? Can you still hear me?
Yes, you're
Monica?
still with us. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no worries. Do you have a Zoom icon at the bottom of your screen? When you have the different applications at the bottom, there should be a Zoom icon, blue Z or a small video camera. If you click on that,
it's not doing anything.
Okay. The easiest, maybe just leave and come back. That will work very quickly.
Okay, leave and come back.
Yeah.
Just log out.
Yeah. I know sometimes the tools disappear or kind of hide from us if we want
Okay,
to use them.
I'll be right back.
No problem. In the meantime, as we are waiting for Paul, I can see that Simone posted the questions. Connect SMS will suit any cell phone such as Android, iPhone, and others. Yes, any phone, Simone. So it will be delivered as a text message. It could be the older flip phones that we had. They do actually have the texting capacity as well. So it's amazing how many mobile devices can be reached through that specific tool. Any other questions as we are waiting for Paul to come back to us? Or comments at this point? Yeah, good.
Okay, I'm back.
Perfect.
I don't know what happened there. I'm sorry.
No.
No idea.
Oh, I'm just going to find you in the list and spotlight you again. Although you're hiding here.
All right.
There we go. Okay, you're back. Perfect.
All right. Okay, so what we're looking at is the Connect SMS dashboard. On the right, there's a couple of videos. You see a couple of videos here. Now my little clicker is gone here. So now I've turned on the annotation. How do I get rid of the annotation? There we go. All right. So there's a couple of videos here on the right. We're just talking about onboarding and how little time is really required to use the software and how simple it is. Just provide a little context here. The quick start video, which is really all you need to watch to get started using the software, is 2 minutes and 34 seconds long. There's a secondary video here called the deep dive video. It covers basically enabling some important features like the new message notifications that Jane was talking about. It's 4 minutes and 30 seconds long. So, altogether, you've got about 7 minutes wrapped up in, learning how to use the software and kind of setting up some of the settings. So really quite straightforward. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to get into the process of adding a contact like you would and then messaging them. This is basically the process that's detailed in this video. I'm going to add the contact manually, but the software does include an uploader. So if you wanted to upload a large number of contacts at once through a CSV file, it will certainly do that. So to add a contact, we just go to the Contacts tab. And in the Add a New Contact, we're just going to fill in these details. So all you really need to do is add the first name, last name, and phone number. There's 2 additional fields here. They're entirely optional. They can be used to store pieces of data that may be helpful. So it could be a client ID. It might be their favorite color. Doesn't matter. Whatever you want, you can put in here. So for this demonstration, I'm going to use myself. So this is me, and add myself as a contact. I have been added. There's a success message. And now what I want to do is message this contact. So there's 2 ways to do this. I can click the Start link here under the Connect column, or I can go to the Connect tab where all the conversations have, and I can open up that contact in the Contact section. Okay, so now my contact is ready for messaging. And to type a message and send them a message, all I do is I type it into this field, and I just send it. Okay. And out it goes. So I'm going to pick up my phone here so that I can respond to this. And I'm just going to navigate away from this for a minute. I want to do this so that I can show you what happens when a new message arrives in the system. So I'm going to respond with, hey, what's up? Okay, so you'll see now in the Connect tab, we have an orange badge. So that indicates in the tool that there's a new unread message. This number obviously will change depending on how many unread messages are here. And if you've enabled those notifications, you can get a notification by email. You can get a desktop notification, which will float out from the right side of your screen. And you can also receive notifications by text message. So I open this up, and there we go. There's my client, and you'll see there's a new unread message with this person. And, in this case, I can see the message here already because there will be a snippet displayed. To read it, I just open it and I read it. Okay, so there it is. That's basically all there is to having a conversation with somebody. I come into the software, I add them as a contact, I come in to connect, I select them, I type the message, and I send it. So I would just continue to do this, over the course of the relationship, right? Very, very straightforward. Just a couple of things I want to talk about here. At the very beginning, Monica said that text messages were 160 characters long. Well, that's sort of true. Text messages are measured in 160 character segments. And that isn't even true because basically if you exceed, you can have multiple segments strung together. And if you exceed 160, like one message with 160 characters, then actually you lose some characters when the carriers put them together. It's called concatenation. It basically means we're tying extra text messages together and we need a little space to do so. But what it really means here is you can send longer messages than 160 characters. So you'll see this counter here will actually count the characters, and it'll tell you how many credits you're going to use when you send a message. So you can send longer messages, just not just 160 characters. So there's a few other things happening on this page. As you can see, obviously, it's very simple to have multiple contacts here and to open and chat with them all at once and just kind of move from one contact to another. But the page is very straightforward, but there's a couple other things that I just kind of want to touch on. Some of the tools, a few of them Jane alluded to in her presentation, I'll get to in a minute. You can send emojis, obviously, in your messages. You can load template messages up. So you can create message templates, and then you can just load them up. So for example, if you wanted to send a 3-month satisfaction survey thing, you create them in advance, you can load them up. So you don't have to be, not everybody in your organization has to keep creating these. You can create shortened links. So if you have a great big long link that you want to drop into your message and you want to shorten it so that it's not so unwieldy and ugly in a text message, you can do so. You can send images. So at the beginning, Monica also mentioned MMS. So MMS is multimedia. And it's not so much dependent on the phone, although it won't work on an old flip phone. But what it is it's dependent on the plan that the client has. So if they don't have a data plan, they won't be able to pick up MMS. If they just have a regular plan, they will be able to get SMS. So your client needs to be able to get images to be able, if you were going to send it and then receive it. Now you can actually receive them in here as well. So if a client sends you an image, it will display in here. And you can send PDF documents as well. So you can send documents, images, and so forth.
Paul, just a quick question from the group. If the message is more than 160 characters, does it use multiple credits or goes as 2 messages? How would that work if the message is longer?
Yeah, so it'll use multiple credits, and this is what this will display. Okay, so this is what you'll see: 0 characters, 0 text credits, 160 characters per text. This will display the whole thing, and it'll tell you how many credits you're using. So if your message is 300 characters long, you're going to use 2 credits to send that message.
Okay.
And it'll always report right here.
Perfect. Fantastic. And another question, is there voice to text option?
So you mean like if somebody had a landline and you wanted to deliver a text message and have that turn out to be read on their landline or something?
So,
is that what you mean?
Let's wait to see if that's the clarification. For me, I was thinking, can I dictate the message? But totally different tool, I guess.
Well, I mean, it's only a short message. It's a text message, right? So, I mean, the reason why you have voice to text on your phone is because it's a pain in the neck to type the messages in, because especially if you got fat fingers like me, these little letters, and you got to try to reach them, right? Here you're using your keyboard to type the message. So, writing a 140 character message on your keyboard on a full-size keyboard is not really that much of a pain in the neck. So you can't dictate them here, but I understand why you would ask that question, because you want to be able to dictate messages onto your phone, because it's a pain in the ass to type them out.
Gotcha. So January is clarifying voice a message to send. So I'm assuming attach a voice message as a file, I guess. That will be the question.
A voice, then it's not a text message, right? Now we're talking about multimedia messaging and so forth.
Yes, exactly. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Good questions. Good questions. Go on.
Okay, so just the last couple of things here. The right column, right-hand side column, you'll see there's your client's data, whatever pieces of information you have about them. There's a notes field, so you can enter anything that's relevant about this conversation that you may want to hold on to later. You can type that in and save it. Obviously, your client is going to be privy to this. And there's a couple of additional help files here, or videos, sorry, if you so desire. What you will notice on this page is that there's no way for the user, the person who's actually using the software, to delete the conversation, because I have actually disabled that ability for this account. And if that was available, there'd be a delete button here. But what I've done is I've disabled that. That means there's no way for my staff to delete a conversation, which means there's always going to be a record of this conversation. So the only thing that's up here is an archive button. And if you actually hover over the little question mark, it's going to tell you what it does. And so if I archive something, it's going to take the conversation and it's going to move it into the archives, and it's going to clear this out. So you might want to do that if you have a new conversation, or you're a new topic, or you just want to clean up, a big long thread or something. So I'm just going to show you what that looks like. If I archive a conversation, I'm going to click OK. You'll notice the conversation is now gone. My client is not gone. He's still here, right there. And I go to the archives, and you'll see there's the conversation, there's my contact, there's his phone numbers, there's the status of the conversation, there's the date. And now I can actually look at the transcript, and you'll have the complete transcript for however long it is. You'll have whoever's contributed to the conversation here on the left. You'll see your client's responses. Everything has date and timestamps on it. And actually in the transcripts, you do have a date and time on it. In the Connect messaging window, we just show the date, but we are a little more granular here because we're not worried about space. And then we'll show the delivery status of the message. So now you can print this locally if you want. You can print it, or you can save it as a PDF or whatnot. You can download it as a CSV file. And you can also download it as a CSV file right from here. If you're not familiar, CSV is comma separated values. So that is commonly opened in an Excel sheet, an Excel document. So it just opens like a spreadsheet file, and you'll be able to see the entire conversation, whatever documentation, right? Again, this is just all about making sure that you have all the data all the time, and so forth. You also notice there's nothing here in the delete column, and that's because, again, I've disabled the ability to delete conversations for this particular user, just to ensure that you have that data transparency. The software, I think I mentioned, it was designed specifically for social services and employment and so forth. And this is really important for them. They've got to have a record of everything, and they've got to be able to go back and say, yes, we did. Yes, we did. Yes, we did. So this is why we do this stuff.
So another question, Paul, if the client doesn't want to receive those messages anymore, can they unsubscribe or stop the messages?
Yes, it can be enabled. By default, we don't have that enabled for your account because basically, like Canadian law, unsubscribes and CASL applies to. So Canada's anti-spam legislation applies to commercial messaging, which this is not. But if you said to us, hey, we want to have stop enabled on this, then yes, we could enable it for you. So it's built into the tool, but most of the time that doesn't happen, right? Because you have a relationship, you're working with the people, you're helping them. It's not like you're sending spam, you're sending these informational one-to-one conversations. It almost never happens.
So this is just to clarify for Behishta. Behishta is wondering, if she starts using this, will the learners have to download the app to their phones? And we have been clarifying that that texting is actually a feature within the phone, so there's nothing to download for them. Is that correct?
So part of the problem with this sort of referring to this as an app, it sounds like something you have to download from the Google Play Store or something. But no, what your client receives is a text message. Again, nothing different than just a regular SMS message. So you need to have access to the software. The client doesn't have to do anything. The client doesn't download anything. They just use the regular texting app that's already on their phone. So there's no input on the client at all, which is great, because as soon as you ask people to do stuff, that's when you start losing them. So they don't have to do anything at all. No difference for them at all. No change to them at all. Just comes in as a text.
And the other question is, does the website need to be open on the computer laptop for the whole day, for example, to see the notifications?
No. So this is where we're talking about out of office messages, right? So new message notifications. So we can send notifications of new messages to emails, by text, by desktop. So this is where we're talking about. And what Jane mentioned is that if you're not in the software and new messages arrive, we'll send you an email, or we'll send you a text, or we'll drop if you're on your computer and this is closed, we'll drop a desktop notification. So we'll let you know. You don't have to be in the software all the time.
Okay. And then a comment from Courtney. Wouldn't the learner client have access to the same texting features available as for all text messages, meaning they will be able to open and dictate a response? And I'm assuming on their end, it will depend on the device they're using. Is that correct?
It will entirely depend on the phone, right? Whatever their texting application supports. So if they're using an older smartphone that they can pick up and dictate onto, like if the app supports it, then that'll be supported. But it is the phone.
Yeah. So I think the big question here is that when you're showing us the tool, the Connect SMS tool, and we were looking at writing the message, that accessibility feature of being able to dictate the message it has come up in the conversation. And that's the follow-up to that conversation as well. So potentially a future maybe to build into your app in the future.
Yeah, actually, yes. I mean, this kind of stuff is really helpful. And I know I'm going kind of branching off, but the way we develop this tool is we send out client surveys and we say, what is it you want? Because we build stuff where we build what we think you want, and it's never what you want. So we don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we were in the archives, and again, we archived a conversation and we just had a look at that. So I just want to really quickly kind of go over what we did. We came into the dashboard, we went to the contacts, we added a contact here. Then we went and we messaged the contact, right? We send a message, I can send another one, and we got a response, and then we archived the conversation. Again, this is pretty much what you're going to be doing 80% of the time. You're just going to come in, you're going to add a contact that you're working with, you're going to have these conversations back and forth to support them, to give them what they need. They're going to respond, you're going to respond, and this is just what it is. Very, very simple. So straightforward stuff. So this is why I wanted to show you this. The tool is dead easy to use. I just want to touch on the reminders really quickly. I know you've only got a little bit of time, and I know I'm probably running out of time here, so I just want to touch this really, really quickly. These send the automated appointment reminders just like your dentist does, right? So they're really useful for eliminating and reducing missed and forgotten appointments for whatever you have, but they can also be used to send 3, 6, and 12-month follow-ups. So you can add somebody and send a message in 3 months or 6 months or 12 months. You can do all that kind of stuff. And it's really valuable if there's any sort of cost to a missed appointment, whether that's cost in personnel time or whether it's actually a financial cost. It's really valuable. So you can actually go to the PubMed database online, and you can look at the peer-reviewed clinical data that supports basically the use of automated text reminders in reducing missed appointments, about 50 to 75%. So there's a video here that you can watch. It's really simple. You don't really even need to do that. I'm going to type the client's name. There's my name. Then we put the appointment date in. So obviously this is the appointment. This is the date when they're going to be in the office. We choose the time of the appointment. Let's just say it's 2:00. And then I choose my messaging intervals. So what this means is just how far in advance do I want my reminders to be sent, and how many of them do I want to be sent? So I can send 3, I can send 1, whatever I like. Obviously, the ideal thing is that you make sure there's enough time between the appointment and the reminder so that you have time to basically, adjust things if the person requests a cancellation. And it's not too far in advance so that, they forget again in the interim. So usually 1 or 2 days is ideal, but some people like to send out a bunch of them. So let's just say we send one day in advance of the appointment. I'm going to send one 7 days in advance of the appointment, and I send one 2 hours in advance of the appointment. And then all we do is we choose the appointment message. So the reminder message is what the client is going to receive. These all include these tags. So these are basically placeholders for dynamic data. They're going to be replaced with whatever's in the tool. And we can select a number of reminders. So the tool includes a number of default ones. You can create your own if none of these are acceptable, or we can create them for you. We can send them in different languages. Here we've got one in Espanol, so Spanish. We have one in Farsi, and we have one in Ukrainian. We have clients that send these in all kinds of different languages. So we just pick a message and we click create reminder. And basically that's it. We see a status here. This just means this is basically in a queue, ready to go. And we just know that 7 days before this appointment, they're going to get this message. 1 day, they're going to get this message. 2 hours, they're going to get this message. And that's it. If you wanted to edit it, really simple. We just have to choose one of them. Let's just say you want to change the time to 1 o'clock, save it. All of these have been changed to 1 o'clock. You want to delete one of these, like the 2 hour before one, we delete it. It's gone. So really simple to use, really valuable. Most of our clients find this to be hugely helpful, especially at the price point of like $40 a month. And again, you can provision this for anything that you need sent in the future for those 3, 6, and 12 months. Again, we do have those clients that use it for that. So that's my really quick and dirty overview of the software. Again, I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to show you guys today. Monica, I thank you for the invitation. And I will turn it back over to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Paul. We have a question from Patricia who wanted to sign the question. So that's why you have the spotlight. We should be able to see Patricia a bit better as well. Go ahead, Patricia.
Yeah. Patricia was asking the interpreter, can you see me? Yes. So with the Connect SMS, you would download it onto your laptop, and then you would use it from there as a text messaging system to your clients or learners? Or is it that you would download Connect SMS onto your cell phone and then text from your cell phone? If you could just clarify which one I'm supposed to use.
Yeah, so you don't download it at all. You access it on the internet. So you would access it via a browser. And you can use it on a desktop, or you can access it in your phone. It is accessible on either platform. Now, on your phone, it's a stripped down version. So obviously, there's a lot of complicated interfaces in this software, and a lot of it doesn't really work all that well in a mobile device. So it's a stripped down version. The stripped down version that you use on your phone is really just for messaging. It really kind of centers around this screen and your contact screen. But it actually will display on basically all platforms that you want to use.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
All right, more questions coming up. Anybody else has a question that we could answer, should clarify? Paul, I have a question for you. I may have missed that part because you went through a client name and then you were doing reminders and information. What if I wanted to send the same message to a group of people at the same time?
Okay, so Connect SMS is one-to-one communication only. So it's not a bulk texting tool. Now, we do have a bulk texting tool, and it does integrate with Connect so that you can bring them together. This is largely because of the way carrier support for messaging works in Canada, and the way there's a difference between mass texting or bulk messaging and peer-to-peer messaging, which is one-to-one. So as soon as you get into mass texting, you get into the issues with spamming. Because, right, you send one-to-one back and forth. You and I could send messages back and forth all day. The carriers would never see that as spamming. But if you message 100 people all at once, there's always the potential for spamming. And in Canada, there's no way to provision a standard 10-digit phone number for mass texting. You can only message over a registered, verified number that we have to register. So we have a system that uses that, and then we have a system that does this peer-to-peer, one-to-one messaging as well. But this is just one-to-one.
We learned something new from you. And, the spamming option, we talked about this a bit earlier, this idea that when we get a text message from somebody we don't know, we don't even want to open it because we assume it's spam. So knowing, that that's the choice of kind of using one-on-one, even for that protection a bit more, is very interesting. Thank you for clarifying that, because we didn't know. Yeah, perfect. Okay. I'm going to leave the floor open in the chat. If there's any more questions, please send them in. I think we answered all the questions that came in until now. Thank you so much, Paul, taking for the time and clarifications. I think what I would like to do next is just kind of jump into more questions or kind of a bit more of discussion. We have a bit more time. So it's 2:40. We have around 20 minutes. I'm thinking maybe we can take a breakout room where everyone can talk to each other. So I know some of you mentioned that you have been using texting and it may have worked in a different way. So it's a chance for us to really kind of go over that and discuss a bit in more detail. So let me set up the breakout rooms first, but before I do that, I'm going to ask you for feedback again. So Paul, I'm going to ask you to stop sharing your screen. And I'm going to quickly jump into another Slido, which is the tool where you can participate and answer your questions one more time, my questions. But the question will be really to give me a bit of a reflection. What are you thinking at this point after hearing from Jane and Paul about texting tools? So you should be able to see my Slido screen where you can do a QR code again, or the Slido app. Going to slido.com, putting in the code. What are your thoughts? What's your feedback so far? Could this work for you, for your program? What will be your takeaway from this session? And feel free to say, positive, negative, questions, not sure. All those things are very valid and important. I think our goal was really to kind of answer some of those questions or make you a bit more comfortable with some of the tools that are available out there and understanding how they work as well. And as you are filling in the answers, I can see many of you are typing. We also have a raised hand from Corina. So Corina, if you are okay to unmute yourself and comment or ask a question, feel free to do that.
Yes, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I did have a question, and I'm not sure if this is something that was already covered. So I work in employment services. We're EO funded. So we're currently already using Connect. We do have it. We haven't been using it too much. I know there's a lot of training involved and trying to figure out how to have different staff assigned, because I know I believe we have the plan where there's only 5 of us, so trying to figure that out. But I did go, as the session was going on, into the account that we have, and the phone number that is set up for our organization doesn't match the landline that we have associated with our organization. It looks like it's just a random number. Is there a way to edit that and make it so when clients do receive a message, it's coming from the phone number associated with our agency?
So what we talked about at the very beginning was that most of the time it is going to be a different number, right? It'll be the same area code, but it'll be a different number. And it's just because people aren't necessarily expecting to receive text messages from your landline, and likely they may not even be familiar with it. So they're more likely to assume that message is going to come from a different number associated with someone's handheld devices. Now, can we port your number, your landline number, to us and use that instead? Yes, most of the time. It's a bit of a process. It doesn't always work, especially if you're using VoIP, but it can be done. So, by all means, follow up with me and we can discuss that. But it's not as important, actually, as you think, believe it or not.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yep. And we still have some participants sending us feedback, a lot of information about, how this may be a great tool. The budget, of course, could be a barrier for some organizations, and we do know that we are a nonprofit organization. I know Paul mentioned that one account allows 5 staff members to have access to it. So it's sort of a bit of how we approach it, and then if we find it's useful as well. So you could try it for 30 days and see if that works for you. The 5 accounts, it's almost like giving 5 staff members a cell phone and allowing them to text and communicate with the learners through texting. May not be for everyone, but this is again the idea of us understanding how some of those tools work, and then potentially even going back to the learners and asking them, hey, if we were able to communicate with you through texting, would you be open to that? Would you try it with us? Because potentially that may be a better response, more follow-ups in the end, and a different way to connect with them and teach them how to use the texting tools as well. So, looking at the trade-offs. And I know, Paul, you mentioned that it's not an annual contract, it's a monthly contract. So it could be something where the programs could, potentially try it for a while and stop, or, even allocate potentially, I don't know, every 3 months or so, we have a month to send out. However, in the literacy field, learners come and go on an ongoing basis. So we can just sort of say, we will sign up for January, March, and April, because it doesn't work that way. But lots of things to consider. And I really appreciate all the feedback we are receiving from all of you. as we are connecting and collecting all this information. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have this, we have breakout rooms. I really suggest that we go in and then try that. So I'm going to set up the breakout rooms and send you off for around 8 minutes, because we just want to wrap up at the end, but 8 minutes to give you a chance to chat with each other and connect and discuss some of the ideas. Our breakout rooms are closing. Everybody is going to come back in a few seconds. We're going to do a very quick wrap up and give you a chance to do a feedback form for us as well. And then we'll go and do other things during the day. Perfect. I can see our gallery filling up with pictures and videos. So you had a chance to really chat and connect with each other. I'm so glad to see those videos on. That means you were really chatting. This is awesome. So we have 5 more minutes to wrap up. Just a few more lasting points. One of them is a quick reminder. If you are thinking about texting, whether it's your personal number, organizational number, whatever tool you're using, remember to talk to your learners about having your information put into their contact list. And what I mean by that is that when the text comes in, it will display the name, your name or the name of your organization, rather than a generic number that they may not recognize and treat as spam. And it is as simple as James mentioned, potentially even building an activity or a lesson for your students or learners who are coming and working with you. So they know to do that with other organizations and other friends and colleagues they're working with as well. It's always good to know just simple contact information. It will make a big difference for you and the program. Now, we asked other literacy programs about using texting tools. And many of you also mentioned you're using texting tools. But we didn't have too many programs very keen or sharing yet on how they're using those texting tools. And I think it's just because we are starting, we are still learning, and they may not be comfortable with that. But I wanted to let you know that the 3 tools that they mentioned as well was Text Now, Remind, and Seesaw. So if you're trying exploring different tools, it's Paul's tool you may want to try, or take a look at the other ones just to see what may work for you. We wanted to make sure you have them listed. But if there is any other tool you're using and we don't know about, please let us know. Put it in the chat, send me an email. We would love to know what's out there and then what you're using as well. And finally, a big thank you for all of you for taking the time to meet, to join, to chat in the breakout rooms with each other. Let me know if there was anything you learned or you want to share from your breakout rooms before we wrap up today. But I want to make sure that give you a chance to have access to our feedback form. As you know, the feedback is helping us make sure that we adjust, clarify, make changes to our presentations. So Tracy is going to put a link in our chat to make sure that you have access to our link for the feedback form. Please let me know how everything went. If there's anything else we can answer, I will be really happy to do that. Okay, there's a few more questions. So as Tracy is sharing the link with you for the feedback form, feel free to fill it out. But in the meantime, I'm going to see if I can answer or we can answer any of the other questions that came in. Okay, so first of all, our alternatives. So yes, one of the slides we have is 2 or 3 tools. They are not Canadian companies, just so you know. So Paul has a Canadian company. The other tools that we are mentioning are not Canadian, but we still want to mention them as an option because we know some other organizations are using them. If there's a staff turnover, how does the affect the account? This came up from our discussion. Ooh, Jessica, that's a really good feedback. Paul, how does that work? If you have I guess account assigned to 5 staff members and one of them leaves, what happens?
So what you can do is you can give somebody else the seat that they had, and then you can just transfer all the users that they had over to them. And what happens is the conversations, everything go to the new person so that they can review the messages and learn the context of the current conversations and just carry right on from wherever they were.
Perfect. That's good to know as well. That's perfect. And then just a quick reminder as well, as Tracy is sharing the links for you, our virtual showcase website has all the information. So all the past session, it will have information for recording and slides and everything we have shared today. So if you go to the virtual showcase website, within the next few days, I will add the slides, I will add the recording there. And of course, I'll send you a message to let you know it's there. So you will be receiving a few more emails from me, just to make sure you have all the resources and information we have shared. especially if there's other things you share with us that we can add to the presentation and to the information we are receiving from you as well. Okay. And then if you notice in the chat, Paul is mentioning all data is stored in Canada. I know some organizations, it's very important for some organizations to know about that. So just so you know, it's there. Okay. Perfect. So don't forget to do our feedback form, and thank you for taking the time to be here. And thank you to Jane. Thank you to Paul. Thank you to our interpreters.
Thank you so much.
Taking the time and sharing. We learned a lot. I learned a lot even today, just, finding out about all kinds of options and resources and the mass mailing and how that is different from one-on-one messaging as well. So thank you.